Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out OTheAnthem.com. It's where you can find everything OThe Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/OThe Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/OThe Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Sheep.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at OThe Anthem on all your social networks.
This is the Anthem 360, and I'm Anderson Cooper. I mean Corey Baker. This is Corey Baker, and this is the The Anthem podcast.
That was very well put together for the panic that I saw on the other side of the Zoom call before I switched seats here. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 360 of the Anthem podcast, coming to you from all over LA, of course. But Corey is there in the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for listening on your podcatchers. The easiest way, anchor.fm/O the Anthem.
So
and yeah, it's always funny because you know, like I always like the Aaron Sorkin line when he was talking about like why he writes certain shows, and he's just like, I always like the 5 minutes right before something happens, like 5 minutes before the president walks onto the stage, 5 minutes before the start of SportsCenter, 5 minutes before the start of SNL, that type of moment. And that was definitely just that for me. Scurry.
Basically what happened is it hit the intro song for those of you who hang out for the intro on our live recordings, which happen on Mondays. Of course, you can find those on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, all over the place, and the regular episode on Tuesday on OTheAnthem.com. But I have two screens open. OBS is how we run the show. And we are, of course, doing a Zoom call for our call portions of this. And I have it on, as I'm transitioning off of the Zoom call, I just see panic happening on the other side of the call. And I'm like, I'm flipping over at 0, so I hope he's ready. And then I go to it, and you're just sitting there stoutly, just like, hello, everyone. Like, I don't know what happened in the 10 seconds I flipped away, but
put in newsman mode, man. I got it.
Professional. Fuck it, we'll do it live. All right. But yeah, so a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Although I have to say, Corey, I don't know if you feel this. I also feel like it's slowing down. Like we're getting into the place where it's almost back to normal with the number of topics, with the things that are going on. We didn't almost have a war in 3 different countries and also an insurrection at home in the same week. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely, it feels like we're going to the before times as far as news is concerned. But I don't know if you've noticed this. I haven't been watching a lot of news here recently, but it seems like there's been more of an effort to try and eventize like even little tiny things because, you know, during the Trump years, we had insurrections, we
crisis
had
crisis
every day, like, you know, like what's going on with the migrants at the border, what's happening with, you know, the Muslim ban, like every day it was something new. And it was some big, huge, flashy, like, you know, any one of these things would have been the biggest presidential scandal of any other president's life.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday for Trump. And now we're back in Biden, and it feels like boring and normal and new. And at the same time, I just feel like people at like CNN are just like, come on, let's fucking skewer him for something. He didn't bring his pen with him. Let's spend 4 hours on him not bringing his pen with him.
I usually go through the same, or I used to go through the same kind of wake up procedure, which is the 3rd or 4th alarm goes off at 8:50 or so after I've ignored or slept through 2 or 3 of them. And then I will sit up and like give 10 minutes. And then right about 9 o'clock, TV goes on to CNN. But I would come into Aaron Burnett every morning like, breaking news. And I'm like, oh, God, what's happened? What's happened? But then I realized the last three weeks, it's just been like, breaking news, Biden going on a trip to Houston this morning. And I'm like, really, Aaron? Is this where we are?
It was really funny because with Wolf Blitzer with the Situation Room.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how familiar the people are with the Situation Room, but it starts with the theme song, like the dun 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 dun, and then immediately segues into breaking news. And then Wolf Blitzer is there with his paper, and he's just like, you know, like turmoil today in Washington, you know, like whatever the breaking news is.
It's not. It's almost never breaking.
There was a day like 2 weeks ago where it was, it's like almost never breaking news. It's like milk is up to $3 a gallon. It's just like, but like it's almost never breaking news. Sometimes it is, but it's almost never breaking news. But they still have the drop all the time. And then like 3 weeks ago, I think I had Wolf on like when it was transitioning to his show, and it was just like the theme song that was just like, "Hi, I'm Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room." I'm like, no breaking news, like clutching my pearls, like is nothing wrong in the world.
No, see, now he's smart. He's dropped it in the middle. He waits till like 7 minutes in and be like, and we're coming to breaking news here in the Washington newsroom. We're going to go to, what's her name? The hot girl who works at the White House.
Kristen Collins?
No, that was my impression of Wolf. He doesn't remember her name, but he's like the hot girl who works at the White House.
I thought you were asking me questions. You just put me out there. Now everyone knows who I think the hot girl at CNN is. By the way, not a lot of options.
We all know who the hot girl is. That's CNN. By the way, I'm really happy she's the chief White House now.
A lot of very pretty women, but not. I wouldn't categorize as hot women. That's a distinction of one, I think, at CNN there.
Yeah. Get to see her a lot more now. But noticeably, I was going to say, but noticeably, nothing to talk about this week because the only thing that happened was the Golden Globes. So anyway, moving on to the.
There's other things. We have other things. Don't worry. But let's start with the Golden Globes because that just happened last night, all across the country.
And we are up on
Zoom format.
Yeah, Corey and I both did not watch it, so we got this morning's update news. We know exactly what happened during the show.
I remember somebody asked me about the Golden Globes one. It must have been like 2-3 years ago or something like that, and they were just like, "Oh, the Golden Globes are tonight. That's a big night in Hollywood, isn't it?" And I'm just like, yeah, sure. I guess like it's on the same level as the Grammys. Like they can be bought. Like it's not a true indication of the best because the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, who is the voting body of the Golden Globes, is notoriously known for being awful judgments of character. And a lot of the times it seems like it's like the FIFA of Hollywood, you know, like it feels so corrupt. Like 14 people have an incredible amount of influence over what happens in the entire organization.
And I
no black people.
I was going to say, I maybe gave one fuck about the Golden Globes until I saw the story this week that was like, oh, there are 0 people of color in this at all. And the only people of color are kind of, it's like they're in their country, they are the majority. Therefore, you're not really people of color because you're coming from like, you're Spanish, you're Hispanic because you're from Spain, but you're like, all the people from Latin America know what I mean when I say you're Spanish from Spain. They know what the difference is.
Yeah.
Like you're not really you're not a Latino. So
there was a story that came out this week that said that of the 87 members of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, none of them were people of color.
Yeah.
And my surprise was not the fact that there were no members of color, even though you would think at this point they would know to at least have like a couple token people in there to be like, oh no, we got Rick or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a lot of racist places, institutions do.
That might be the story I saw. That was like, well, we have a member from Spain, and I look at the guy and I'm like, Donald
Hispanic. Trump's not racist. He's got Ben Carson. It's like that doesn't count. I mean, like, you know, I think what surprised me more was it was only 87 members. I knew it wasn't like a huge voting board, but like the Academy is filled with thousands of people who vote, and like, you know, they have it separated so that like, you know, if you're a person in sound, then you get to vote on sound awards, and you know, like cinematographers on the cinematography, so on and so forth, and actors on acting. It's just 87 people, which is, I knew it was not a lot of people, but that's really not a lot of people.
No,
it's amazing that there's so much influence that comes from the stupid actions of 87 people. It's like,
it makes sense though that it can be bought because thousands of people in the Academy, you're like, well, I mean, we got to influence them somehow, but you have to do it on a big scale. 87 people is like, I want to fly 20 of you somewhere for a nice weekend, and I got a quarter of the voting block of the entire Golden Globes. So.
Well, not only that, I feel like, so like one of the stories that had come out during this this awards run, was that the producers of Emily in Paris, which was a Netflix show that
was, did you watch
people
it?
apparently really don't like.
Did you watch it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Nah, somebody told me, I said like, oh, you know, there's a couple things like Netflix keeps recommending me this Emily in Paris show, so maybe I looked at it, and they were like, no, don't watch it. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that's a pretty cool. It's not even a like, here's why you might or might not like it. It's like, nope, don't watch it. It's just not good.
It looked like Sex and the City without the friendship.
They described it as if Samantha, is it Samantha? No, who's the main character? Carrie. If Carrie moved to New York,
I don't know.
I asked the one person on this podcast who would know. But if Carrie moved to a new city and then basically like didn't make friends, like just enjoyed New York City for being New York, which I'm sure is fun, but like not a show. That's Seinfeld, and Seinfeld's only really good because of the friends that are involved.
Yeah. I don't know. Apparently they flew like, you know, 25 members of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association of Paris and put them up in a nice hotel and, wined and dined them. And now all of a sudden, Emily in Paris is nominated for a couple of awards, which it totally doesn't deserve, according to almost anyone I've talked to about the show. Yeah. Not to say that the people involved aren't doing what they can to make a good show and all, but apparently wasn't to the level of award-winning content.
What, maybe 10 shows get nominated, and this is one of the 10 best shows of the year?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and there's people who are like, your nominations are against like Schitt's Creek and stuff like that. So maybe you can buy a nomination, but you can't necessarily buy enough goodwill to put you over a show that should win either, But
it's Golden Globe nominated. She's the Golden Globe nominated actress, and you'll use nominated forever, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah, I mean it's nothing to worry about. All their careers will be fine, and I'm sure it was money well spent.
Yeah.
As far as Netflix is concerned, I just
and honestly, even if I hear people talking about how bad a show it is, some of those shows I still watch because I'm just like, I want to see what kind of train wreck this is. Yeah. I watched Schitt's Creek first because somebody said they hated it so much, and I asked them, well, did you like Boys in the Hall or like other Canadian comedy kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Kids in the Hall. Yeah.
Kids in the Hall. Sorry, yes, Kids in the Hall. Boys in the Hood. Yeah, different thing. And they were like, Kids in the Hall. What's that? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this because one, I don't think you know what you're talking about, and two, I don't trust your judgment on anything now. So yeah, I'll go see it, and if it's horrible, maybe I'll hate watch it a little bit until it runs out of flavor. If
they responded yes to Kids in the Hall, I would be like, all right, well, how about SCTV? That's how you really test them on their Canadianism.
Yeah, that's the SNL of the Great White North, right?
SCTV. Yeah, John Candy and Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara and everybody. Rick Moranis.
But I would like to point out, since you brought it up, that Corey had not watched Schitt's Creek until maybe 4 weeks ago when someone...
Oh, it was before. It was longer.
Played it for them. Yeah. No, wait, that's right. You watched a little bit of it and you said, I didn't really like it. And I said, no, let's watch and push through.
No, I hadn't watched it. I heard other people say it's one of those ones where you have to like sort of the first season is good, but it's not until they really find their path that the show really takes off.
Yes.
And I just never started, so
I forcibly made them start. We watched 2 episodes together maybe, and then next time I came over like 4 days later, like, oh yeah, so we watched the first and second seasons, and we're entering the 3rd season. I'm like, okay, well, this train has left the station. I'm glad. Also, I think I have admitted on the show before, and I will continue to, that Daniel Levy is one of the only men in this world that I would go gay for. And that is a weird thing to say because I will admit, I think he would admit he's not one of the most attractive men in the world, but I don't know, just everything about his personality I love and I wish I had. Just his ability to be like, fuck you, I don't care, and I'm going to do what I want, and I'm very funny, and also marginally good looking. I think we're both like 6s, and I think it's a good match. We're both funny. We have a weird sense of humor. We're both 6s. What I'm saying is, Daniel, if you're out there and you're still single, I mean, just give me a call if you're in LA. We'll see what happens.
I just can't wait. I'm going to have to make a note of this particular episode. Not because like I feel like this'll I don't care about the gay fantasy thing going on here. I just want to make sure that I have this clipped off for when the two of you eventually get married one day, and like you're just like I didn't believe in love until Daniel came along.
I was gonna say I thought you were gonna clip it so that at one point when we are meet him in person and we're gonna become friends and we hang out.
Hey, watch this.
And my wife, my 22-year-old USC graduate wife, is in the other room, and you're like, oh hey, Candy, come here for a second. Dan, you're gonna love this. Candy, let's watch this. And then you play the awkward clip where I admit on the show that I'm secretly in love with him in front of my wife and our new friend Daniel. So
I'm doing that thing where I'm just like, it was like 5 minutes into the episode. I'm just trying to skip ahead and find it.
So, by the way, Schitt's Creek won Golden Globe, and basically the only thing I heard about during the whole show was just like, well deserved. Oh, and Haley Kuko, Kaylee Kuko,
yeah,
Kaylee Kuko didn't win. So she posted on Instagram her sad I'm in the dress and I'm sad picture. But other than that, it mostly didn't matter, and we're in LA, and not anybody seemed to care. So that tells you how much it matters.
it's one of the weirdest things. Just and we'll finish on this, but like as far as a Hollywood perspective goes, it's good to have a Golden Globe win because it helps propel you into a front runner status in the Oscars.
Yeah, Schitt's Creek now number one in the Oscar chase.
Well, for the movies, obviously, not the TV. But like, because the Golden Globes are right before the Oscars happen, so like a movie that wins a lot of Golden Globes will be seen as a favorable Oscar contender going forward. It's just so like I don't know. It's just like such a weird thing because it feels so bought and paid for that it's like. I could, my film is really good and it might get nominated for an Oscar, but I have to go to Arco every day this week and get tabs from the bottom of this box in order to be considered. Like, it's like there's a step that goes into it. Like, I'm not saying you have to go to Arco every day and buy the special Oscar box, but
just saying,
it would help out a lot.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro came in with 300 Oscar boxes the other day, so I'm like, oh fuck.
But also, do you think that the Oscars being a little further in the year now is going to start changing that, hopefully? Because the Oscars aren't next week. It's not like the 2-week separation anymore. It's like a month and a half, I think, now.
No, I think this will pretty much remain the same. I more than anything, it'll do will probably lessen the impact of the Golden Globes. But a winner will always sort of dominate news stories because somebody wants to write the headline tomorrow. Type in Golden Globes in Google and look at the news articles, and it'll say the 5 shows that won big or the 5 movies that were big winners, and it'll be way less about like what the host said or what this guest said or what happened here, unless there's some big moment like Daniel Kaluuya getting his mic muted was like a funny thing that happened during the Zoom style telecast.
Yeah.
But that beyond that, they'll talk about the people who won big, and then that'll become a point of contention going forward as far as like Oscar talk. So I think it'll always be there to some extent.
Well, I would just like to announce then that I'm going to go ahead and start a new show starting next year. The awards are going to be given out exactly on the midpoint between the Golden Globes and the Oscars.
Yeah,
I'm going to call them the Corbetts. I'm going to give out a golden
man hurrying to get something done right before the show's starts.
What I really want is to take a photo, like a screen grab of that ponytail you had before we started. And that's going to be the statue that I'm going to give out to people. And I'll just let you know from the beginning, I can be bought and paid for. It's going to be the most influential award to win, but.
Not a ponytail, a man bun. There's a distinction.
Sorry. Man bun. My fault. Yeah, speaking of embarrassing things that men have done in the last, 24 hours, also in the news is Andrew Cuomo, one-time runner-up for what do we call it? Daddy Quarantine, Daddy COVID,
Quarantine Daddy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, he has fallen so very far because we call him Quarantine Daddy as a joke, but apparently he likes other people to call him Daddy for real. So,
well, we don't know all the details for sure, but
I mean, he looks like the kind of guy. Unlikely. He looks like the kind of guy who gets into that kind of thing. Listen, if you are 54,
he's either the type of guy who wants you to call him daddy, or he's the 180% polar opposite.
He dresses like a baby and he's got
or no, like
on.
he like the door closes and he's just like, I like to be called a princess if you don't mind. Like, but yes, Cuomo. We talked about the mishandling of the deaths that happened in nursing homes. That was
the misfiling. Don't say it wasn't mishandled, it was misfiled.
Okay, well, I mean, either way, it was miss something. And now we have a couple allegations of sexual harassment or abuse against Cuomo. One of the stories was, rubbing his hand on the backless gown of some woman and then like saying, I want to kiss you or something like that. It's,
you're so pretty, I could kiss you.
Yeah.
It was something that could be. Listen, these guys, and by these guys, I'm not going to say that I'm not one of them, are really good at saying
knowing what the line is.
That listen, I could talk my way out of this if my girlfriend was to come over here and hear me say this to you. I'd be like, what? Listen, you said when we walked in, she looked very beautiful. I'm just saying, like, yeah, you're so beautiful I could kiss you. That's a thing people say. Like, that's not a thing people say. Like, oh, it's a thing my people say. All right, I don't know what to tell you. But then if she takes it the right way.
I'm sorry, I'm just a handsy person. I like to touch people. Like,
yes. Yeah. Which, by the way, there's no excuse in COVID. There's no more excuse for that. I don't want those people around me anymore. Don't touch me.
Keep your fucking hands to yourself. I think the lesson that we should always take from this is don't ever trust anybody. And I'm not saying that I believed like Andrew Cuomo was some white knight who was going to do everything right, because he had never proven himself to be that person.
And look at his brother. Look at his brother.
But I mean, like, it's just one of those, like, I can't, like, how could you, people who have one note, it's funny to see how quickly they get in trouble and then can't wriggle free. His whole thing is like, I'm the tough guy. I'm the tough New York guy who's going to handle things, like he's the bully kind of thing. And when you don't have a note to go to where you're sorry and, like you need to make amends for something, bully doesn't work anymore. You have to be able to, like, from time to time. I think like Hogan is actually probably a good line for this, because sometimes he'll talk. He's usually pretty even keeled. And when he needs to say something serious, he has like the serious demeanor to him. But if he needs to, be tough, he's also got that tough guy move that he can go to.
Drops an
octave.
It's more,
it's like a little spectrum of how serious he is.
He's also got little kids, by the way, and I think there's something about that. Like, his daughters were like 10 or something when he became governor. So he had that, like, look at me, I'm a caring father, but I could drop that voice and be very much stern if you want me to, or if I need to.
Yeah, I could go to your room. Like, yeah, I got it in me. Don't worry.
Doesn't mean I don't love you, but I need to be stern right now.
I don't know what to say about Cuomo. I think that these are the compounding problems that usually lead to somebody having to resign, or if not resign, at least get to the point where it becomes so difficult for you to run for re-election that you can't really, you just gracefully back out. I'm going to spend time with my kids or whatever. Like,
well, and I mean, listen, obviously neither of us are from New York. We spent time there, but not in a long time. And the reason I included it is because we've talked for weeks now kind of about the memory of American people. And I think, number one, we can certifiably say the weekly press conferences will end, because no matter what he talks about, the questions that come out after it will be like, tell us about Jennifer Flowers or whatever the girl's name is. But you know what I mean? And more than that, his reelection is 2022. He's up for reelection in the fall in 2 years, less than 2 years. Well, 1 year. God damn. Man, election cycles are so close together. But if he can recover and run and win, then I think the chances of like Trump and all of the like Cruz and all these guys surviving and getting reelected is high. If he runs and loses, especially, but also if he's just like, you know what, I'm done with politics, I'm going to take a step back, I think it's a good sign that maybe polling is saying people's memories are going all the way through this COVID time and into the future and saying, hey, yeah, you did an okay job with COVID, kind of, you lied to us, but also you groped a bunch of people and maybe that's not okay. And maybe that'll help us in 2024 with the other election.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily indicative of anything regarding the other side, just because New York is very Democratic heavy. Like, you could say to me that Gavin Newsom is going to be put into the recall election thing. Like, it's going to get to the point where there's enough votes.
P.S. Update, it looking more and more likely every single day. So we'll see. But
yeah, well, we'll see. We'll talk about it when it happens. But in the meantime, like, it looks like it could happen. But at the same time, like, Faulconer from San Diego isn't going to become governor. Like, there's not enough desire for a Republican to become governor that if it was a Republican versus a Democrat, the Democrat would win in California every time. What they're hoping for is that 197 people decide to run for governor, and a bunch of really good Democratic candidates are all running at the same time.
Yeah,
and then they all split the vote, and then Faulconer comes in with his 10% of the vote, which is the majority. And
the problem is
that's it.
Judging by CPAC, which also happened this week, the Republicans can't seem to figure out what kind of party they are, because I've been hearing for weeks that they are not the party of Trump, but seemed like, all I'll say is this. The party of the Bible, the party that's supposed to be very conservative and Bible-loving, built a golden image of a man at their festival, which I'm pretty sure is covered real early in that book, and they just did seem to ignore that part of it, just like the rest of it, that they don't
The worshiping of false idols is something that it wasn't in Corinthians, so people don't know. Like that's where all the
it is the Old Testament.
That's where all the judgment of other people comes in. That's what Christians are all about these days.
No. The New Testament is all like good and love. You'd think these guys who are all about like fire and brimstone would love Old Testament God, where he's like, this city really pissed me off. Boom, you're done. Off the face of the earth. Happens in the same book, the golden idol and that whole city being blown up. But hear him talk a lot about Sodom and Gomorrah. Also see him build golden statue. So very weird. Very weird.
CPAC is such a weird thing because it's like it's kind of like a cosplay convention for the Republican wonks. Like,
yeah.
Like, okay, so I remember when we were at Hofstra, the Hofstra Republicans were trying to organize like a group trip to CPAC for anyone who wanted to go. And even though at the time I was a member of that Hofstra Republican thing, and even though I was registered as a Republican at that time, and even though I was a political science major and certainly wonky, I wanted nothing to do with that thing because it's so fucking weird. Like, how many goddamn times can you sing that same Lee Greenwood song over and over and over again and act like you're doing something important? Like, that was my big problem. It was like,
sorry, you watched the Boy State documentary, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm realizing as you were saying that like it really is Boy State it's Texas Boy State, where it's like all Republicans, even the Democrats are super kind of conservative. It's just, let's go. It's a frat boys having fun together.
But it's almost not even that. It's like I kind of think of it like Orioles Fan Fest. Like if it was Orioles Fan Fest for Republican members of Congress and the Senate. Like, I'm going there hoping I get an autograph from Ted Cruz. Like,
but it's not even all Republicans. Because again, what I saw this year at least was that like there were a lot of people on CNN saying like, no, you would usually attend CPAC. In fact, my husband was a founding member of CPAC back in the 80s. But when I saw the slate of speakers, I decided this year wasn't going to be for me because it's skewing so far to the right.
Well, I mean, way back when I was thinking about going, or like when it was mentioned to me about going to CPAC.
20 years ago, you mean? About 20 years ago?
It was like a place where like the libertarian elite would get together and meet up for a little while. Cause like the straw poll is always like a big thing about CPAC.
Yeah.
And for every single year for decades, it was some combination of Ron or Rand Paul who would win that thing because the libertarian wing of CPAC was like so fucking heavy.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it became the Tea Party, it became more of like a Tea Party event, but certainly a good degree of libertarians who were like still
But keep in
hanging
mind,
out.
When the Tea Party came in, they brought the Koch brothers with them because the Tea Party was the Koch brothers. And it also started skewing off to this like corporate event.
Right.
And that's when the libertarians, in major part, who weren't Tea Partiers, were like, this is not our show anymore. And we've continued to skew off on that exit.
One libertarian like standing in the middle of the big hotel they have in DC or wherever it is, and they're just like, what was so wrong about the Ramada? It was cheap. People liked it. The beds were clean. I don't need to have this Waldorf Astoria CPAC convention. Like, I think if anything, it's proven that the people who are inclined enough to go to a Republican convention, basically like a not the GOP convention, but just sort of like a yearly convention of fandom for the GOP, is going to be heavily Trump based right now. So. And you know what, I what I found really interesting about it was that, you know, they were polling the people there about like, how they felt if Trump was on the ballot versus Trump not being on the ballot and everything like that. Overall, 94% of people who attended CPAC and filled out this questionnaire said they had a favorable opinion of Trump.
Yep.
65% of them, or 65% of the people who attended, not just the 94% there, but 65 of the total number, said that they would vote for Trump again. And like
no questions asked, basically. As
no question. Right, and doesn't matter who else is on the ballot. I vote for Trump. And then 55 said, I think about it, but it would depend on who was on the ballot, which is like, so it sounds like this was like the super Trumpy crazy CPAC this year. But I do think that kind of puts worry in my head, because if you were saying to yourself, as Trump, I won 70 something million votes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of my most fanatical supporters, only 65% of them are 100% in for the next round. You're not giving yourself the chances as much as, like, it doesn't seem like the base is as riled up as it had been before.
I think he looks at that room though and he says, I only need half of you, because I got a bunch of people out there that this hotel would not let through the front door. And those
we tried to put this old Nazi sign on the floor and they didn't come.
I mean, that
it's like the Pied Piper of racism.
You know, he's got a whole bunch of people who are on no-fly list now, so it's not like they could come to CPAC after the fact.
True.
You know, they're being blocked from travel, not to Mexico, but, you know, inside the United States, especially in D.C. So, you know, I think that
well, this one was in Florida, so.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so he did fine. But 50%, I think, is a strong showing there. The bigger thing for me was that every single speaker is a believer in the big lie. And that seemed to be the message of the time, is that, like, our CPAC convention this year, we're going to talk about the big lie. We're going to push the big lie. And we want you thinking about the big lie for the next year. And I hate saying the big lie because, I mean, that's like the House managers picked up that term and, like, pushed it. But I don't know how else to refer to it. Like, he didn't win. There was no fraud. He lost the presidency. So it's a lie. And it's the lie that they're all sticking to. So,
well, I mean, the big lie has always gone back to the principle of you could tell a lie big enough and enough times that soon enough everyone would believe it. And, you know, under that pretense, yes, I totally get where they're coming from here, but I also don't like it because it sort of sounds like a I'm with Ike or like I like Ike kind of thing. Like it's like a slogan more than a real ideal of how the election went through. I don't understand how you think that there's still something wrong. Not you, but, you know, the person who thinks the person who thinks that there's something wrong with the election is still holding on to that. Because, like, we would know by now.
Yeah. There's no reason to keep the secret anymore. We got it. We won.
Especially considering that, like, the closest of the states, Georgia, was counted multiple times, including by hand.
Yeah.
And, like, if you think that I can understand how somebody could get to you and make you think that, like, a Dominion voting machine changed votes or something, like how that could happen because, you know, there's bugs and you have a cell phone and there's bugs in that all the time. Something happened. Your camera stopped working. Like what, you know, like
I can only open Instagram like maybe 3 days a week because they send an update that just tanks it on my phone. And then I have.
Yeah. So everyone understands how technology can go awry. But then, you know, like once they hand count them, that argument's kind of out, right? Like, so, well, I won't ever understand these people who are just like, no, the hand counting was fucked up too. they fucked up to almost the same exact number that the Dominion voting machines fucked up. Like,
yes, listen, one for Biden, one for Trump, one for Biden, one for the trash. I saw the count go down. I know how it happened. But the Golden Globes and CPAC are both essentially organizations that at one time may have served a purpose, are most certainly almost all white, if not all white completely, and will continue to be an embarrassment going into the future. I think those things that they have in common, and they can continue to live in that world if they want to.
Yeah, I would be more in favor of the Golden Globes sticking around, though, as opposed to CPAC. I mean...
if we only can lose one?
Yeah, if it's a choice. Because, you know, like... you know,
I'd
the
like
Golden Globes.
You'd like to win a Golden Globe. I understand. Yes.
I'm not saying I wouldn't win. You know, like I'm not gonna slide a bag of money across the table. But if somebody wants to reward me for my genius, then who am I to say no?
Okay, so let me get this straight. You're not going to slide the bag of money across the table. But if someone was willing to slide a bag of money across the table with your name on it, well,
hey, what I don't know doesn't hurt. Like, listen,
you remain the artiste. I understand. Yes, that's fine.
If somebody wants to pay for me to run for president, who am I to look away their donations? You know, like.
All right. Well, so beyond CPAC and the Golden Globes, there were two other stories I wanted to touch on this week. Both of them just briefly. One, there's a school in Arkansas that just today had the very first school shooting of 2021. And I think part of me was like, sadly, was like, wow, we made it to March without a school shooting. And then immediately I said, wait, like 70% of schools are not in session. So that's probably not, or not like physically going to a school building.
Yeah.
So that's probably not as good as I thought. And it pushed me down this rabbit hole of like, well, what was 2020 like when most kids were home for most of the year and school shootings were down to 0, you might ask? No, to 25. There were 25 school shootings essentially in about 40 days of in-person school last year. So it happened at different places, different times, but the U.S. school children averaged 40 days of in-student instruction last year. Whether it was before COVID or at some time during COVID, the middle of the year, end of the year. I mean, California, we were in school for a while before they actually shut it down. When things were terrible out east, they were still like, oh, we're fine here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, the cases hadn't really gotten to us yet, and the schools were still open at that point. But I remember there was a point where New York was closed and LA was still open.
Yep. And then for a while, New York reopened, and LA was like, no, we are not reopening. And then New York closed again because it was bad. But so 40 days.
But they kept the bars open.
Kept the bars open. Well, because, those are the voters. Fuck these kids. Voters are the ones who go to the bars. But so in 40 days of instruction, there were 25 school shootings, which is sad, but also very low. So there was about one school shooting per day or per 2 days of instruction. 2018, we were running at a rate of about one per day of school instruction. So, things are fucked. And I think you said it aptly in our kind of like setup call, our pre-show meeting call, where you were just like, not only do we have the stuff from before that was causing school shootings at the rate of one per day, but now we have a bunch of kids who have for 8 months, 12 months, maybe more for some kids, just had unaddressed mental health issues caused by COVID, now being pushed back into an instructional environment. And we have no idea how that's going to impact in the long term.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the children going forward, because there's already been a lot about people having more mental health issues as related to not seeing their friends, not going to school, not having that normal interaction that I think all people really need to some degree. Like, you might be the type of person who wants to be a loner, but you still want to have a couple people around to feel alive at some point. And I just feel like, the mental health issues that would rise from an event like this are going to have catastrophic impacts on the other side when schools are open like they had been before.
Yeah.
And, more than anything, I really wonder about just it. I haven't looked into this too much, but just sort of from my own perspective of mental health issues, I don't have very bad problems like a lot of people do, but you can have a mild depression every once in a while. I get into that state where I'm like, nobody likes me. And sometimes I feel like that's because I don't see other people.
Yeah.
You sort of get into that stage where it's just like, oh, Rob hasn't physically been in my presence for 2 weeks, so he might hate me now. But
well, I hated you even when I saw you more often than that.
That's the type of thing that you can brush off if you're a little 30, bit more stable in your mental health. You can sort of say no, I'm just getting ridiculous. I'm just saying these things. Of course, now Rob's giving me a complex, but
Ladies,
say, like,
imagine what it's like to date me. Hey.
you can put together in your mind like how somebody who isn't able to properly compartmentalize these feelings could develop something that would hurt themselves or others. And I think that a big thing we're all going to have to deal with on the other side of COVID is the mental health crisis of not just the children who are sort of like being stripped of their ability to learn how to be people. Because school, more than sure, you learn, like what the Magna Carta is and stuff like that. And
Corey, what's a Magna Carta?
So anyway, no, I just I think that
But
we're
so you were
gonna
saying you learn how to be people while you're when you're in school.
it's
as
not
well.
just about the knowledge you learn. It's about learning how to interact with other people and to make friends and to deal with, problems and, everything that will set you up for being, the person you will be once you leave school. So
I'm not so involved with high schoolers, but obviously I have a 3-year-old going on 4-year-old in my life that essentially started going to what he called school, which was like an advanced daycare center where they treat it like school, but it's daycare. And he had that for 3 months from his birthday until March, essentially, before they shut down.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like reading reports and buying these books that are written by psychologists that are like, here's what you can expect when someone's interrupted, basically, where they start their social development and then you have to pull them out. And then, oh, wait, now we're going to shove you back in. So it's just been you and mom for a while. And mom just, of course, loves you no matter what you do. Even when you scream and punch her in the face, she still loves you. And kids aren't going to love you if you scream and punch them in the face.
Yeah.
So I'm buying these books and sending them to my sister. Like, all right, so here's one about anxiety and how to deal with anxiety. And it's like, I know that you and I probably never thought about anxiety when we were 4, but this is a whole thing where like people he knows have died. Like I didn't have to deal with, oh, Miss So-and-so not going to be around anymore when I was 4.
Yeah.
Like my first death was high school when I lost somebody close to me. So I don't know how he's going to deal with that. Anything I can do. Here's a book. Here's about how to transition back to being around other people. Like,
well,
the world doesn't revolve around you.
One thing is that I think that more than anything, there's reps involved with seeing other people.
Yeah.
And I know that when I was a kid, if I felt like I misspoke in front of somebody else, it would weigh on me all day.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
you'd get another shot the next day though.
Yeah, but and eventually you'd be like, like, oh, maybe I can cover for this. I can be a nice person and cover for the stupid thing I said that one time, right?
Yeah.
But like even I when I went to go pick up lunch earlier, I had a moment where like I opened the door and one of the employees was walking out of the door. And for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to tell her that I was there to pick up my food.
Yeah.
And she was in the middle of doing something else. But like I opened the door and I'm just like, hi, here to pick up for Corey. She's like, okay, just go up to the counter. And I'm like, right, I'm not interacting with enough people. I do stupid things. And this is the type of thing that would normally weigh on me.
Right.
And if I was a kid, if I was like, in 7th grade, it would really bother me for like probably a week or so.
Just laying in bed like, why did I say that?
Until I could see that person again and just be like, I need to recover from this awful moment, It's like the Uber driver dropping you off at the airport. It's like, have a safe flight. Yeah, you too. How do I recover from this?
Yeah, but in 7th grade, you would be like, all right, so I'm going to go back to that place, and then you go in. That same person is behind the counter, and she's like, here to pick up, and you're like, having a great day. How's your day? And then you're like,
fuck.
Yes, order for Corey, please. And then you're just laying in bed like, all right, so 2 out of 3. I fucked both of the 2. How high do I have to go to make up for this? But listen, I think that's absolutely right. We don't know how this is going to impact kids, and we weren't in a good place before. We're not coming out of a place where it's like, hey, we got school shootings down to 1 a year. We were at 1 a day, and now we have a whole new batch of mental health problems on top of it.
I would say that the best way to get through it is if everyone could just agree to be kind and patient with people. But the problem is that's like Why do I even bother suggesting that it's not going to happen? Like,
do you have a TikTok? Because I'm not sure you're in with the movement right now. I don't know if you're down with the culture.
No, but it's like, like when you used to see a kid and they would say something to you, just like, like a Tyrannosaurus is a dinosaur. Like,
yeah.
You don't go like, shut up, I know this already. Like, so like, oh, that's great. Thank you for telling me. Like,
you and I are of the generation where we say, oh, that's great. I saw a grown man argue with a child about dinosaurs and the child was correct. And I didn't want to have to go over there and just like, what's that going to do to that man's mental health that I'm 22 and this 8-year-old is more correct about this subject and I am trying to school him on it. But I really wanted to. See, I'm too nice. I'm not really that nice even. But I wanted to go over there and be like, just so you know, kid, you're absolutely right. Keep it up. Study hard. You don't reproduce. Let's just cut this off at the root if we can.
Yep.
But other issues of violence in our society, not only just shootings in schools, but, hey, the country as a whole. Now, listen, we haven't gotten a stimulus yet. We don't have a real plan for vaccinating all of America yet. There are problems running rampant all across this country, not including systematic racism and the police, which are both still issues, the courts.
Yeah.
I watched too many documentaries in the last week to even name all the subjects. But one problem we're not going to have in the future is Iranians in Syria attacking American troops because we dropped bombs on them and they're dead. And that will solve the problem once and for all, as history has taught us.
Yeah, I mean, a proportional response equals no more violence ever. I think that's basically it's rule number 1, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, if you ask the UN, if you ask the U.S. Department of Defense, that's how we do it. It's like, listen, they take 2 of ours, we take 20 of theirs, and then it's done forever. There's no blood feud. It's fine.
We wondered exactly what level of same old president we were going to have with Biden. And listen, I think the book is still early to tell, generally speaking, how this is all going to go.
Sure.
But the idea that we're concerning ourselves with the sort of proportionate response style of military interventionism is not something that I necessarily wanted to go back to. I was hoping that maybe we could have a new break, but at the same time, I knew that Biden was, of the same cloth of every president I've ever known in my lifetime. So the likelihood of him deciding to change things up was not going to happen.
I want to shock you with something.
Yeah.
I was hoping that Biden would be more like Ronald Reagan. What you say? What? How so? Because cocaine was widely available and very cheap? Well, yes, but also because when American troops were killed in
because it was so much easier to get the attention of Jodie Foster.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's not Syria, Lebanon. When American troops were killed in Lebanon, Reagan was just like, okay, let's bring our boys home. You don't want us there? We're going to leave. Now, he also had an interventionist policy in a lot of places because he left Lebanon and invaded Grenada, which was just an island that needed to be invaded for reasons that only Reagan understood, mainly that he needed to get reelected. But, and 1,000 people died. By the way, the staircase, the girls who were adopted by the guy, their father was killed in Grenada. He was one of the 1,000 Americans killed in the invasion of Grenada. Amazing. That's what sent me back down that rabbit hole. But so he basically said they were going to blow up our Marine barracks in Lebanon. We're going to pull out. And now we're going to leave them to themselves. And turns out, although some may disagree, it turned out pretty all right. The Lebanese settled their civil war. They established a government. They are very anti-Israel. That part's probably not great if you're, looking for peace in the Middle East. But as far as it's concerned, Lebanon itself is relatively stable, especially compared to Syria now. But we invaded Grenada and they've never recovered. And we were in Colombia and Nicaragua and all over the Southeast Asia and South America. And those places are in terrible shape now, wherever we're interdicting ourselves. Maybe Biden could be more like Reagan. The first thing, just the one example of like, All right, so you're saying UN, you're telling me proportionate response. My response is going to be, we're pulling our boys out, and good luck.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been a kind of the recent history of U.S. foreign interference has always been like, hey, this really big kid is picking on this little kid. I'm going to go defend the little kid.
Yeah.
And then it became hey, this little kid all on his own is deciding to have his own like government that's different than what we want, so we're going to go interfere with it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of like, it started off like, oh, we're going to have the back of everyone who can't defend themselves kind of thing. And then it quickly became, we know how to pick winners, so we're going to go out there and pick winners. And there's times where I wonder if like you can't leave Iraq. Like, so part of this was, it happened, the bombing happened in Syria, but it was Iran fighters who were helping train, all this is alleged. So
Yes.
this is from the DOD. So I don't, until I get better information, I don't know what to tell you. But the idea being that in Syria, the Iranians were training Iraqi counterinsurgent fighters
Yes.
to take out U.S. troops in Iraq. So the U.S. can't leave Iraq because we've sort of created a mess and we have to fix it. But if it was another situation, there is like this kind of world where if the U.S. was just like, you know what, fuck it, we're done, we're leaving. And then everyone in the Middle East starts doing the like, oh, wait a minute, no, you can't leave. Just, well, you won't do it again, I promise. Like, there's a little bit of like, if you threaten to pull out, then maybe they'll shape up, which is what Reagan did a couple times.
Well, I think the part of that, though, is when we threaten to pull out, the people who are like looking at it and saying, I want to be strong, we are not dealing with those people. And oftentimes those people are just a different religious sect than them. That's why there's violence. And the U.S. says, and by the way, I think your example is apt. There was a pillow fight happening between a bully and a smaller kid, and the U.S. comes in and hits the bully on the head with a hammer. And now nobody knows the pecking order around here anymore. And then we were like, well, we'll just pick who's in charge because we're really good at that. You would do that. And then sometimes the people would say, we actually don't agree with that. We're going to pick somebody else. And then we would assassinate that person and put our guy back in charge. Because that's what we do. But I think a little bit of us just saying, listen, here's the date. We're pulling out. You guys got to settle up. It's up to you. And that brings people to the table. They're like, okay, so if we don't have American troops, we're not ready to defend ourselves. That means civil war. Or maybe the fact that I'm Sunni and you're Shia doesn't really make that big of a difference, and we should come to some kind of coalition government here. And maybe we should say, Iraq shouldn't be a country. The North should become Kurdistan, along with probably parts of Turkey, and go to the Kurds. And the East should go to the Shia, and they can create their own state that is very similar and probably supported by Iran. And the West will be a Sunni state and will be supported by Jordan and Saudi Arabia. And maybe it's not, maybe it is cutting it into a desert and calling it peace, but it's still peace. But we've made this mess now, and we feel like, I can fix this. It's like when you fuck up a recipe and you're like, all right, so that was way too much salt. What do I need to put into this to undo the salt? And it's just going to get worse and get worse and get worse.
But every attempt hopefully gets you to a better solution. But the problem is that every single time you're attempting it, you're cooking a different recipe.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, I put too much salt in that cake, so I shouldn't do it for my fries. And then you realize you fucked up the fries now too because you didn't put enough salt. Like the long run problem with U.S. interference in other countries' affairs is that you're going to end up with like trying to learn lessons from one country which don't apply to another. Like, nothing about what you learned in Vietnam is going to help you in Colombia. Yeah.
Well, how about this? Every time we have interdiction in a country, it's America saying, I really like an omelet for breakfast. All right, omelet's almost ready. Let me flip it, and scrambled eggs. So maybe we should just go in saying, I'm going to have scrambled eggs for breakfast, and understand that that's what it's going to be. Or don't make breakfast. Skip breakfast like I do.
Or we could just go to the idea of like the Canada version where it's just like, hey, don't make me come over there. It's like, you ain't coming over here. It's like, fine, we weren't coming over.
I mean, yeah.
But we told you not to let us come over.
Just so it's clear, we drew a line in the sand and we did not cross it.
We told you how we felt about it and then did nothing about it.
Well, it sounds a lot like you're talking about our COVID response, Corey, here in the United States, which is, of course, the last big news story of the week, and I guess in several parts. The first part being, as I pointed out, we found the money to bomb Syria, still haven't found the money for a stimulus. So, listen, for people like me who've been working throughout the pandemic and who have suffered almost no repercussions economically of the pandemic itself, the risk super high and not really happy about it. But economically, I'm doing better than ever. I have enough money saved now that I can move to Belize for 3 years and just not work and just live. Thanks, John McAfee, for giving me the guidance on where I should go and how much it costs to be there. So I'm doing fine. There's a lot of Americans who are not, though.
Sometimes I feel like your YouTube history, kind of like YouTube knows when two people are friends and they start putting over some videos from one to the other.
He's going to talk about this. You need to watch this.
I get a remarkable amount of YouTube videos where the cover image is like like a guy smiling with like a $5 bill, and he's just like, "My life in Belize," and I'm like,
or Google saying, "Your
Rob
friend's
like
about to
this,
make a
it may be
terrible
poorly."
decision. Maybe you should stop him from doing this." But listen, no COVID stimulus.
Not yet. I mean,
on break.
We have that. We have that House voted on their portion of it. We're gonna see what happens with the Senate.
Yes.
Right now, the most conservative or most moderate, I guess, members of the Democratic Senate are sort of holding out for their issues. Like Kristen Sinema, what's his face in West Virginia? Why did I forget?
Warren Hatch?
No, that was Utah.
No, yeah. What's it? Byrd? Robert Byrd?
That was another West Virginia. Manchin. Joe Manchin. That's who I was thinking of. Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, they're sort of holding up the Democratic side. And then on almost any issue, it seems like where the Democrats could just come together and get something passed, there's somebody who's holding them up, including Dianne Feinstein has done that about the filibuster. Again, proving that Dianne Feinstein really needs to fucking go.
Yes.
But
can we vote her out, please, Corey?
California voter? If Dianne Feinstein and Joe Manchin are effectively the same person, and one of them has to worry about getting elected in West Virginia and the other one absolutely does not, then
in California?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had on the schedule for us to talk about the filibuster and the parliamentarian, and we're going to skip over that because I still think we have time for it. In the end, it comes down to this. It's about rules, and you can change the rules of the Senate, but you have to have support. And the Dems have a 50+1 majority right now, where the 50, as it has been historically, isn't united about anything. So they can barely get some good stuff done. Here's the reality. The $15 minimum wage hike will not survive the bill. The COVID bill will move forward eventually. It'll have money in it for different stuff. It won't be the $15 minimum wage. And when I say eventually, I mean at some point, because right now we're looking at an April rollout of the stimulus, if at all. So we may be through 50% of the vaccinations or more, because we hit 50 million of the 100 million this week. So maybe more, 50% before we hit the stimulus that was supposed to come months ago. In the depths of the COVID pandemic. So I said this in the pre-show meeting. This is no way to run a government. This is no way to run anything. But the fact that this is how our government runs makes me sad. And it should make everybody sad. This is what you vote for. This is what your tax dollars are going for. And every day, I recognize the irony with which I say this. Every day that we do not march on DC, drag them out and hang them and vote new people in, is a missed opportunity.
See, I'm beyond the point of changing the system that we currently have, because the same things that allowed the problems to rise to the top will happen over and over again.
Revolution. So, I hear you, Corey. I'm with you. Let's overthrow the whole damn system. The whole damn system's corrupt. We got to get rid of the whole system.
I think the problem is that no system would fix it though either.
When the revolution starts, let it be known, Corey Baker started it right here.
First of all, I think nobody will believe you say. Be like Trump being like, I didn't do it, she did it, she sexually harassed herself.
Listen, every conspiracy needs.
I didn't
Patsy,
follow
Corey.
her. I didn't follow her into the women's changing room. She went into the women's changing room and she did it to herself.
Every conspiracy needs a patsy, and I think I just found mine. So, listen. Good news, though. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No. I was just on the last point on the stimulus, though. Like, I think that eventually we'll get there. There's going to be some hand-wringing about certain parts of it. And since the parliamentarian has thrown out the minimum wage, which seemed to be one of the bigger sticking points, mostly to, and while I think the minimum wage needs to be increased, the national minimum wage, I can understand somebody like, I forgot his name again already.
Joe Manchin?
Joe Manchin from West Virginia, not wanting to double the cost of the minimum wage in a state that is poorer.
Yep.
As opposed to a state like you would say to yourself, like, well, it needs to be 15 in California, and it will be because the state of California has passed individual laws that will bring the state minimum wage to 15. New York has done the same. I think that while I think we should work on a system that would eventually get everyone to 15, I don't know if the idea of every single year bringing up a little bit and then 10 years from now or 5 years from now, we have $15 in West Virginia makes a lot of sense, because if you raise it by $1 an hour over 10 employees over the course of a year, you're talking about, $16,000 that you're adding to your payroll costs, which, you think you can afford. Everyone thinks every business can afford it, but not every like a tackle shop is not the same as a McDonald's,
Let's not get into that because they can't
Right.
afford it. They can't afford it, but I'm not going to get into that today because I don't want to embarrass you more than one time, and I've already done it so many times today. So let's just say, aside from that, I think that Manchin is right in the fact that people need assistance now, unemployment insurance, rent, eviction protection, these important things that are in the bill. This is not the hill to die on this particular bill. Like, yes, we need to increase the minimum wage. It doesn't have to be now. And there is things in this bill we need now. So let's pull it out. Maybe we can even get some Republicans to vote for this, and we don't need to bring the VP over from Annapolis. Let's just figure out what we can agree on in this bill and get it done. And yes, everybody ideally would love all these great things. But again, this is the government that you voted for. So this is the government that we have. And every day that we leave them in power, they should do things like this. I think, unbelievably, I agree with Joe Manchin. Not that it shouldn't be raised, because I think it should be raised nationally, and I can explain to you why if we have more time, but that this is not the place to do it. When if the rules allowed it, fuck it, let's fight it, and let's just get it done. But if it doesn't allow it, the parliamentarian has ruled, so unlike the Republicans during the impeachment trial, let's just say it's been settled, that vote is done, let's vote on the rest of the bill and be done with it, so we can get some assistance to people. So, and, kind of in the same vein, Johnson & Johnson got their emergency use declaration from the FDA. So, again, getting to that idea of like, let's just get help to people now. Not that we don't have enough vaccine, because we've purchased enough for every American to get 2 at this point. But Johnson & Johnson is 1 dose. It doesn't need to be chilled at -90, so it's a lot easier to get out to places.
Just regular refrigeration will do.
And you had an interesting point, and I can't remember it. So about people going shopping for vaccines and why that might happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it. I've heard people saying like, oh, I want the Pfizer or over the Mrna, or like, I don't want the Johnson & Johnson. I would rather have the Pfizer or Mrna. And I think a lot of people are hearing about these efficacy rates where, like Pfizer and Mrna were like 95, 94%, whereas the Johnson & Johnson one was 66% or something like that, 70%, somewhere in that area.
Final number.
Yeah. And I would say don't worry about it that much. Just personally speaking, I'm not a doctor. I'm just going off of the information that I receive from other doctors and scientists. The most important part the reason why this is a miracle and we should be treating it more like a miracle is that number one, we got this vaccine in record time, and it's not because all of a sudden we finagled some things and made it happen. There was a lot of really important innovation that took place in vaccines in the last 10 years that have made this possible.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, just because you hear 90 something for Pfizer and Mrna and then 70 something for Johnson & Johnson doesn't necessarily mean that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is less capable of keeping you from dying from coronavirus, because so far, from all the people who have been in clinical trials that have been they follow these people after the trial is over to see what the long-term effects are. Nobody has gotten seriously ill, hospital ridden ill after
deaths.
the vaccine has taken hold. And no deaths. So if we can go, there was the talk at the beginning of the whole pandemic where it was like, well, if you're young and healthy and you get it and it's like you have a bad cold for a week or like a flu, like why wouldn't you just get it and then you're immune and you're good? Like that kind of logic.
I may have said that. Yes, I may have said that at the beginning.
That kind of logic can sort of be replaced by the vaccine of any of these ilk, because they can all basically do the thing where it gives you the immunity with very little side effects and allows you to go back to living your life. Like,
yep. And listen, if you don't want the J&J, that's fine. I'll take yours. If you qualify for it, just let me know. I will come and get it, because in the end, my concern is death that's not on my own terms and a serious hospitalization that eats through all my Belize money, and then I have to then go into debt for it.
Well, what amazes me about this whole thing too is just that, like, I know that I didn't necessarily want to come on the podcast and start talking about the miracle vaccines that we've created, because I don't want people to think that, like, any vaccine that we were going to get was going to be some miracle drug or something like that. Mm-hmm. But there are so many things about the process in which we've gotten from where we were a year ago to where we are right now, which is incredible based off of the history of medical science. And it's, you'll hear a thing every once in a while about, like, 97% of the pictures that have ever been taken in the world have been taken in the last year or the last 10 years, because
90% of the pictures that have been taken in the last 6 months, and that continues. Every 6 months we take that many more pictures because we can take so many pictures so often.
Right.
And
like something like that is just like, it's not because we weren't taking pictures before. We just never had the ability to take as many as we fucking wanted to. Yeah. Like all the time.
And Corey and I grew up in the time where you took 24 and then you went to the Kodak place and you dropped them off, and then God, I hope you had
to you had to carefully make sure that it was all in line before you hit the button, because you didn't want to waste one.
Yeah.
Like,
and maybe you take 2 or 3 because you're like, if the light's not quite right, I'll get one good one in there.
Well, I mean, if it was a really serious, if it was like a christening or something like that, or a first communion, you take a couple of the same one, because every once in a while there would be a problem with development in the lab.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't want to lose that one really good picture you took of all the grandparents. So you take a couple just in case the lab fucks one up. You got extras.
It was the Dark Ages, people. You have no idea.
No, but I mean, like, it's really amazing that we're at this point, and like, we should really be super thankful for everything that happened. Rob and I used to get into NASA conversations all the time. Let's not do it again now, because we don't got time for that.
We still do.
We don't got time for that.
Landed on Mars. Helicopters on Mars, motherfucker. That's all I'm saying, all right?
The one thing Rob would constantly come back at me for whenever I would say, why are we giving NASA so much money to blow shit up, is he would say, like, oh, in 1972, they were trying to discover this, but because of the money they spend in NASA, they discovered this instead. And now because of that, we have the internet, or whatever, like whatever thing came from a discovery that started from some mistake from NASA.
The internet's one of them, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we are, in just the fact that we've committed enough money and energy into medical research that we've been able to create these vaccines. Again, I always fuck it up. mRNA.
mRNA.
vaccines.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the big news is this is the first, and I didn't realize that it's the first mRNA vaccine ever.
Yeah.
And they're saying that like Pfizer and Moderna are going to probably lose money on this vaccine because all the resources they put in, they can never make it back. Because once everybody gets one, then it's like, oh, that's it. But
Yeah.
they might develop an HIV vaccine based on mRNA technology, which was unheard of before. They're like, we'll never be able to get a vaccine for this because the virus is just, it adapts too quickly, it changes. And then they're like, oh, well, this mRNA thing that we're using for COVID would work exactly the same way for HIV. So, yeah, as soon as we're done with this whole COVID thing, we're going to dive into that HIV problem that we've been dealing with for, 40 years. So,
And I mean, just things like it works like that in a way too, because like you might donate to, a AIDS-based charity or something like that for money to go to AIDS research. But the things that they discover while they're trying to work on the AIDS research is something that helps COVID vaccines. Like, the way you never know where it's going to end up, like where the discovery will eventually get you.
This mRNA vaccine came out of cancer research because they've been trying to take the measles virus, reprogram it so that it will attack cancer cells but leave healthy cells alone, so that you don't have to get where they put the poison in you, chemo. So you don't have to get chemo. So essentially, this will only attack the cells that are cancerous and leave all the other cells alone. They've been
was another version of that they were trying too, wasn't there? Beyond measles.
Oh, they tried it with a bunch of viruses, but they failed completely. But it required mRNA technology, which is how we learned how to do mRNA stuff. And now they're like, oh, so it failed when trying to treat something, but will work really well in this vaccine arena because we only really need that one protein. Where it failed here, we learned it and we can use it here. And so that's the thing is, if you've given your money to the American Cancer Society and you're like, well, we still have cancer. The COVID vaccine is in part due to the research they were doing into lung cancer with viruses. So it all works together. And now our COVID virus, it sucks that we've gone through all this, but we've learned so much in a 12-month period that may help us medically in the future.
Yeah. So if you're out there, if somebody says you can get your Johnson & Johnson vaccine right away, but you'd have to wait for your Moderna or Pfizer, I would not delay. Just get your Johnson & Johnson. You'll be fine. Also, just a quick note, something for people to consider. When Pfizer and Moderna started first testing their vaccine, they were testing when there were way less people and way less cases out there.
Yes.
Which is going to change the number of efficient, like it's like saying like me and Rob have the same car, but his got better gas mileage on a perfect 70-degree day than mine did during a snowstorm where I was trying to like go uphill. It's like,
but if I'm selling the car, it still looks better. That's all I'm saying.
There's different circumstances here. The cars are effectively the same. The way that they read out the numbers are a little bit different, but that's
J&J can say that theirs is effective at a high rate against the South African variant, the UK variant, because during their testing period, they tested with people who had all of these variants, and 72% was the efficacy across all variants. Pfizer was done testing essentially by the time we had our first real variant. So get the Pfizer. It also may mean you need a booster in 6 months and another booster 6 months after that. Whereas the J&J one, it's like, hey, you're going to get sick, but it's just like the flu vaccine. Sometimes you get the flu vaccine and it means when you get the flu, you have 2 days where you feel kind of crappy instead of 9 days where you want to die.
Yeah.
So,
but that's just get it, please. If you're listening to me, you're curious, get it.
And I have a whole thing. I've decided, Corey, I'm going to save it. I'll do my own ranting video about the vaccine rollout because I have thoughts. I know people asked me this week. It's all fucked up and it's all political and it all sucks. But I'll put that on my own video this week so people can look.
Okay. I mean, we can get to it next week. I just didn't want to. We during our pre-show we had a long thing, and most of it was involved with me not understanding exactly what Rob was saying.
Well,
so he was yelling for like half an hour, and then
me asking a question, you giving an answer to a question I didn't ask, me insisting about the question, and you giving a different answer to a question I didn't ask, and then round and round we go.
I think it felt like one of those. There was a meme I saw where it was like, my wife was really upset, so I came up to her and I asked her, "Do you want me to solve the problem or do you want me to listen?" And I think when Rob said that, I was in the like, I need to solve a problem stage, and really what he needed me to do is listen. So like,
Are you comparing me to Rachel now? Because if so, we're gonna have to turn this off and have some words. That's all I'm saying.
no, I'm just saying I've never been committed to one person for as long as as you in my entire life. It feels like I've been married to you forever.
By the way, I don't want to go past without mentioning it. It is the 11th anniversary of the fuck turtle incident that occurred in Baltimore. So we've mentioned it for the 6th consecutive year on the podcast, the anniversary of fuck turtle. So yay. It's been a long time. And by the way, that was, let's see, 11th anniversary means that was 7 years into us being friends.
Well, if you want to send Rob and me a little something for all our marital bliss, you know where you can go?
Wait. Where's that?
TheAnthem.com, TheAnthem.com, or The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. You can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com// Corey Baker Film, and at LegendCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I spent this week reading. I got a new book, the Justin Fenton Gun Trace Task Force book. And you can still go see Never and Again out on BET Plus and Amazon and wherever you get fine films, and working on other things. So a long string of me saying I'm working on other things, but trust me, I'm working on other things.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's just staring into the room, waiting for Roberto to read my script, get some goddamn notes.
Okay, to be fair, I do also have the script and I have it open and I have notes on like the first 10 pages, but
yeah,
that's as far as I made it.
Well, I also I have been, while I was working on reading Justin Fenn's book, I was also reading a little bit of yours too. So
fair enough.
I will have notes for you. Yours is much longer than mine, though, so.
It's multiple things as well. I don't know what the most recent things. Oh, it's just the review of the books, right? Which I'll talk about in a second. One question though: what is the 19th anniversary? What gift do you give people on their 19th anniversary?
I don't know. Do you want me to find out?
Yeah, look out while I'm talking, because just a reminder, folks, this August will be 19 years. Corey and I have known each other. So if you're
19th Amendment, that's not what I'm looking for.
Nope, nobody cares about that one. So you can find more of me.
Bring it up. By the way, they were bringing up the 10th during CPAC, and I was just like, I wonder what the Google Trends on 10th Amendment is gonna be.
Nobody knows what it is.
Who the fuck knows?
By the way, that's why during the during the unsettledness over the past 5 years, I've always said protect the third. I want to go out with a sign that says enforce the Third Amendment and just wait for people to ask me because they have no idea what it is.
The traditional gift for the 19th year is bronze. So maybe get you a little bronze statue or something like that.
No, we don't have to get a gift for each other. I was saying if the fans want to give us a gift for our 19th
I know. I'm
anniversary.
saying maybe they can they can gift a little bronze statue of Rob that will make him.
Oh, I was going to suggest that I'm putting out these little statues. It's a commemorative Corbett, that'll be coming out next spring as
with
a
the
real
man
award.
buns. And
Yes. So if anybody would like to purchase a Corbett, we'll get those made in bronze instead of gold and send them out as gifts. So, but you can find more of me at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. Make sure you check out robertncheek.com where you can find links to all the stuff that I'm doing, including the books, which are available on Amazon.
Byrod's books.
And on that note, I have now reviewed and edited all 3 of the original Movement Universe books to have them all republished this year, so people aren't having to pay $40 for a copy of Foe, which is what it's running right now, because you can only get it from the secondhand market. So getting those edits reviewed and then getting those things republished, I'm super excited about that. And while Corey has taken a week to get anything done, I shot 5 videos this week. One is out today. It's the update on my Sutera pillow review. And I have reviews, not really reviews, unboxings, if you will, of several products I think might interest people if you get Instagram ads like I do. Kizik shoes, sand cloud towels, update on my mouth armor box, a whole bunch of stuff. So a lot of stuff coming. Keep an eye out for that.
Nice. Well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the The Anthem podcast, part of the The Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
All right, now to turn the air back on because it is getting stale in here.